Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge of the Brawler Cafe. So, Toy Fair has been occurring, and we finally have something that's worthwhile to talk about. Not from Toy Fair itself! Oh no, we'll talk about that in a bit, but first we're going to talk about how do Fusion Bakugan work, because this is the new mechanic that's coming in Set 5. It's been the big focus, basically, of the stuff being shown off at Toy Fair. Basically, all the new molds have been Fusion Bakugan. And like this Set 5 is called Fusion Force. So like, obviously, it's a very big focus of the next set. We'll talk about the other stuff towards the end of the video, just briefly, but I want to focus this video on explaining to the masses how exactly this new fusion mechanic works. So how do we know? Well, as I said, not from Toy Fair. We basically, after we found out that Fusion Bakugan existed, an anonymous source who has a future version of the basic rulebook that comes with star sets, one for Fusion Force assumedly, that details how Fusion Bakugan work, posted images of those pages, so now we know how Fusion Bakugan work. So let's talk about it. So unlike the Fear, Fusion Bakugan do not actually start as two attributes. The Bakugan that you'll see will have two faction symbols on them. They'll have combinations of colors from the color schemes of two factions, but they do, in gameplay, they do not actually start with two factions. This is very important because the big concern was that if they start with two factions, that means you could use 4, 5, even 6 factions in a deck, and that fundamentally breaks one of the core balancing mechanics of all Magic likes. It's a very core part that, like, running more colors requires having more risk, and that, like, the only way to really balance this would be underpowering the Fusion Bakugan. But that is not something you really want to be doing, because that puts a huge amount of pressure on your designers. If they slip up once with a mechanic that could be this potentially volatile, if one of them becomes really good, then you might have just screwed up your whole game. And that's a lot of pressure, and you want to avoid that. So fortunately, they start with one faction. They're double-sided character cards, and each of them has an F icon ability that you can pay a certain amount of energy to use. And when you do that, you flip the card over, and it uses its new stats. And that new fused Bakugan will have two factions. So while you can't use it for any additional cards, it will allow you to activate, say, Aurella's Power if you have, say, for example, the one that we got as an example is Dragonoid and Auxiliator, which comes from the new Capstone toy, Infinity Dragonoid. It starts as just Pyrus, and when it fuses, it becomes Aurelis and Pyrus. So now you would turn on any of your Aurelis Power cards. So you would be able to use Aurelis Power cards in decks that only have one actual faction, that still have 3 true factions, no Aurelis. You just have to wait a bit to get that online. So basically, these act very similar to evolutions, except in a lot of ways they're way better than evolutions. So basically, it's an evolution that you don't need to draw into, doesn't eat any deck space, doesn't cost you a card from hand to use, and you don't need to acquire 3 copies of. This is the part that I think I'm happiest about for a general structure thing, because like this does a lot to fix the issues with drafts having way too many evolutions. It means that there will be way less evolutions in packs, so draft will become a much more enjoyable format because of that. I'm just worried about Evos in general getting power creeped out. I hope at the very least we will have cards in some faction that are able to defuse a Bakugan, similarly to how Chaos can currently destroy Evo cards, because I think them being not able to be destroyed would be a bit too powerful. Okay, so what else is there? Oh right, the Baku cores. So the section on the toy battling game for Fusion Bakugan mentions that there are Baku cores that have this F symbol on them. So this means that that we're going to have Baku cores that interact with fusions in some way. what I'm assuming is that these will be similar to the gear cores that we got, that will reduce the cost of fusing. So yeah. In general, I am not very happy with how Spin Master handled this. The fact that we needed a leak to solve this panic is really infuriating. Like the jumbo character cards that Bushiroad. I almost said Bushiroad. Sorry about that. That Spin Master showed at Toy Fair were not correct ones because they have the fusion energy cost on the same side that they have the double faction, and like if we had been looking at the proper version, the final versions of these character cards that have one faction on the side with that, and then we see the other side that's fused, well, the mechanic explains itself at that point. We don't actually need the rulebook for this. All we needed was one character card that had both sides. That's all we needed to understand the mechanic. And it's just really frustrating that Spin Master, like, they know they have an active TCG player base. They know that player base is going to be paying attention to Toy Fair. So, like, you need to be careful to not present these new mechanics in a way that's going to lead to big panic, big speculation, because with the information we had, the assumptions we were reaching were just what would logically follow with how the rest of the game works, given what information we had at the time. So that aspect is really frustrating, and I really hope Spin Master does not make a mistake like this again at next Toy Fair or any other sort of reveal of stuff. Just really frustrating. That was really annoying. That part is really annoying. As for the other stuff at Toy Fair, we found out that LGS support is coming in summer, as well as the cons that Spin Master is going to be at. There's no ECCC and no MomoCon. They're going to be at Anime Expo, Gen Con, and Chicago Con, I forget the name of. No, Canada. Thank you. Very cool. Now, here's something interesting. So, for quite a while, we've known that Spin Master is not responding to messages from the LGSs that were registered with Spin Master to do the pre-releases, and Upper Hand. Upper Hand as well got registered. And Spin Master has not been responding to them at all. And in this flyer, all images of all this stuff you can see over on the Brawler Cafe Twitter, or in the Mardavante's video and EC's video, so check those out if you want some more visuals on this. I'm just trying to get this out quickly. But what's really frustrating is that this flyer says that claims that they have confirmed 100 or more stores to be part of being a part of this hobby store program, but these stores that that stuck out of them for you, that like have been hosting your player base, where you have existing players, you're still ghosting them while apparently reaching out to these 100 plus other stores. Like, what the hell? That's not acceptable. Like, these should be the stores that were contacted first, because they're the ones that have an existing community for your game and stuck themselves out there, like took a risk on your product. Like, this was a big pre-release, a big product, like 32-person pre-release that you expected people to buy into, and it worked out well for many stores, but they were still taking a risk on you. And I know several of those stores have stopped doing anything Bakugan since. Guess it didn't pan out for them. And like the ones that did, they don't get rewarded in any way. They're finding out they should have been the first people to know. Those stores should have been the first to know that this outreach was happening. Instead, those owners, from everything I've heard, are just as frustrated as the communities they host. and it's ridiculous. That's absurd. Like, I'm glad it's finally coming, but you better reach out to these stores ASAP. They should have been the first. They should have been the first. And like, I've seen the idea put forth, well, maybe they haven't actually reached out to these stores yet. They've just connected with distributors that have that many stores that they supply. Well, one, I would hope that Spin Master isn't dumb enough to do that, because if that's the case, there's a very real chance that there will be less than 100 stores hosting this program when it launches in summer, and people are going to be even more annoyed then when they find out, hey, the number you stated here is not the number that's actually getting this hobby store program. And two, we know that Spin Master or Cascade or whoever has been reaching out to stores already, because at least one has said, yeah, Spin Master has contacted me on one of the Facebook groups. So yeah, that's how that makes me feel. As for the other things, the faction bundle is pretty cool, but I want to know the MSRP. Basically, the faction bundle comes with a crappy cardboard deck box with the faction symbol on it, but more importantly, it comes with reprints. I think these are basically going to be like tins. I think these have way more packaging than they need, though. They really should not have this much packaging, and we kind of need to know what other things are in them and how much they cost. All we really know at this point is that they have a deck box and they have at least one reprint. The reprints we know are Darkus Maximus Nihilus from Armored Elite, Drumwave, Nature's Power, and Blinding Ink. So, two comments on these besides my positives. Darkus Maximus Nihilus should not have been here. It should not have been here. That card is going to have no value now. Like, people know, like, this is all the other cards are rares. All the other cards that we're seeing here are rares, and Darkus has a Bakugan Elite. And Bakugan Elites have not been great at keeping value. Like, there's been a rather big problem where the highest rarity in this game have not been very good, and as a result have not had much value. And in Armored Elite, we finally had a set where, hey, 3 of our Bakugan Elites are actually good this time. And the one that had, like, one of the 2 that had the biggest hype, it was either this or Chaos Maximus Picatrix. But I think, like, going into things immediately, this is the one that people were most hyped about because, ooh, Archetype, ooh, Rapid Fire. This is the one that's getting reprinted. It's getting its value destroyed instantly. That's not good. That's really, really not good, and you should really avoid that in the future. Like, reprinting Bakugan Elites or higher rarity cards in general, that's fine, but you shouldn't be reprinting a card from such a recent set this quickly. Like, that's just not good for the secondary market. That's not great. Also, Drumwave really annoys me because, hey, here's HTN over here. It needs a reprint so that I can have its correct text, and it's actually a good card. But no, let's reprint Drumwave instead. We could have reprinted something like Stand Together. Well, Stand Together doesn't really need it. Consort, Wayne, Wax. There's any number of actually good Chaos cards you could have reprinted. Holy Flame. But instead, we got Drumwave. Like, okay. Nature's Power and Blinding Ink are great reprints, though. Really appreciate those. Though I would have liked Shun more. And yeah, that's really about it. We have the blind boxes, which we now know have a pack in them, which is really, really smart. I think that's what they should have done. And that's about it for my thoughts on all this stuff. The newer $40 arena is stupid because the $25 arena was already a shelf warmer, and this is going to shelf warm even worse. I'm glad we're not going to have the one copy of an Evo issue with Infinity Dragonoid like we had with Maximus Dragonoid, because, hey, it's just a fusion, so it's not going to have an Evo. And yeah, that's about it. I'll talk to you guys later, and this is Hunter Surge, signing off.